The exact color of the garment of the Supreme Lord is described as saffron yellow, just like the pollen of a lotus flower. The Kaustuba gem hanging on his chest is also described. His neck is beautifully decorated with jewels and pearls. The Lord is full in 6 opulences, one of which is wealth. He is very richly dressed with valuable jewels, which are not visible within this material world. So in these verses we are seeing Kapila Deva describing to his mother Devahuti about the process of dhyana. And here in these last verse and today's verse, we see the description of the Lord whom Kapila is mentioning that the yogi should meditate upon. In these few verses we find very beautiful description of the Lord and his different features. Here in today's verse, Lasat Pankaja Kinjalka Pita Kausheya Vasasam. His Vasasam, his garments. Kausheya Vasasam, shining silk, is Pankaja Kinjalka Pita. It is of the color of saffron yellow, like the filaments of a lotus. Srivatsa Vakshasam Bhrajat, the brilliant Srivatsa. The Srivatsa hair is on his Vakshasam, on his chest. Bhrajat Kaushtubha Mukta Kandharam, and the Kaustubha, the brilliant Kaustubha gem is hanging from his neck. So these are the descriptions of the Lord in the heart that the yogi should meditate upon. It's very interesting to see the degree of details of the Lord's description in the Vedic literatures, to the extent of the exact hue of the color of his garment. And Prabhupada has written in the purport, the exact color of the garment of the Supreme Lord is described as saffron yellow. Pankaja Kinjalka Pita. Pita is yellow. Pankaja Kinjalka is like the filament or the pollen of the lotus flower. And the Srivatsa and the Kaustubha and so on. Like last time we were discussing that how these kind of descriptions given in the Vedic literatures, these are not taken as some kind of a poetic imagination. These are the words of a great personality like Kapila, and compiled by another great personality like Vyasadeva, which has been accepted by many great acharyas. So we take these words from there in terms of the direct meaning. We talked about Mukhya Vritti and Gauna Vritti, and how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recommended that we should take the Mukhya Vritti, the direct meanings of the Vedic literatures, and that there is no need of imagining an interpretation out of these things. Another important factor for receiving this knowledge and understanding this knowledge, which Srila Prabhupada has taught is the parampara system. To receive the knowledge in the parampara. Now these two factors, receiving the knowledge in the parampara and the knowledge that we receive, the Shastra, we follow the Mukhya Vritti, direct meaning of these words. These are very, very potent combinations for us to understand the spiritual knowledge. Otherwise, it is not possible for us to understand something that is beyond our powers of perception. There is one British astronomer called Sagan who says, we as human beings, we are trying to understand many things. And for us to understand, we have to use our brain. That is the way we all have a brain. And we use our brain and we try to understand. He asks one very relevant and important, interesting question. What is the guarantee that our brain has the ability, the human brain has the ability to comprehend all of reality? Which is a very interesting question. Like say for instance, there are animals around us, cats, dogs, cows, buffaloes. We see them around in our country. Now, these animals are understanding certain things about the world around them. Not everything around the world. Like say, do the dogs, cats, do they know that in our country we have a constitution and the government is created on the basis of the constitution and there is a prime minister who is changed every 5 years? Do the cats and dogs know that? They have no understanding. Suppose we make them sit and try to explain to them that this is the way things work in our country. Look, this is the constitution. Will they be able to understand? You see, their brain, they also have a brain and they use their brain to understand. They understand certain things. Of course, you give them some dog food, all of those kind of things, they understand. But there are certain other aspects of the reality which they simply cannot understand. We as human beings, we can understand more things. And now, with our brain that we try to understand, is it that we are able to understand everything? Just like there are certain aspects of reality which is outside the limit of an animal's brain, are there things about reality which is outside the limits of our brain? It could be very much true. How can we be sure that we have the brain by which we can understand everything? So, in our Vedic literatures, this is recognized that even though human beings, we have a little more intelligence than animals, but it is not that our brain can understand, our senses can understand all aspects of reality. So when something is beyond our reality, then how do we get that knowledge? It is not by the Aroha Pantha, but by the Avaroha Pantha. When knowledge is given to us, then we can understand that knowledge. On our own, we will not be able to understand. So, in this Avaroha Pantha, when human beings try to accept this knowledge coming from the Vedic literatures, Not always do they follow all of the discipline that has to be followed to understand the Avaroha Pantha knowledge. Although it is there in the Vedic literatures. There is a tendency to speculate and create our own meaning according to what we want. So when people use this kind of speculative methods to understand Vedic literatures, then one will be misled. So there have been a few acharyas in the Vedic tradition who took this information very strictly and have been following this through the parampara, through the mukhya vritti, in order to understand. Now, how this knowledge can be misunderstood? Very nicely, Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita. When Krishna was describing in the very early part of the Gita about the soul, Krishna mentions Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidenam. Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyaha. Ascharyavat chainamanya shrunoti shrutvapyenam vedana chaiva kaschit. Krishna is saying Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidenam. Pashyati is to see. Ascharyavat means amazing, wonderful. Ascharya, very, very striking. Actually, Prabhupada explains in the purport, here Ascharyavat is in the sense of something being very rare. Like say for instance, we look at the Himalayas and wonder, oh my gods, people go to Char Dham Yatra or some place like that, and then they get glimpses of the Himalayas and wow, they are awestruck, they are amazed to see Himalayas. Imagine in the world there were 1 lakh Himalayan mountains all over the world, everywhere. In Bangalore we have some 3 or 4. And you go a little outside to Mysore, you will find another 5 Himalayas there. Then it won't be wonderful. It won't be amazing. Of course, it will be peak and all that will be there, but it will become too common. So here, Ascharyavat is in the sense of rarity. We'll see that how Prabhupada explains that. So, Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidenam. Some people look upon the soul. This is all about soul, because in this context, Krishna is described, Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityu, dhruvam janma mritasya cha, dehinosmin yata dehe, all of that. Krishna is describing about the soul. So he is saying that some look upon the soul, and they are amazed, they wonder. Ascharyavat pashyati. Some ascharyavat vadati. Some describe the soul as wonderful. Ascharyavat chainam anya shrunoti. Ascharyavat shrunoti. Some hear about the soul and they are amazed. So some people look upon the soul and they are amazed. Some people talk about it and they are amazed. Some people hear about it and they are amazed. And Prabhupada explains that how soul is amazing because you see a big elephant and there's a small soul in it. And even in a microbe, in a glass of water, it is said that there are about 5 million or 6 million microbes. If you drink a glass of water, you have consumed about 6 million microbes put them into your mouth, stomach. So, even in that small microbe, there is a soul. Same kind of soul, which is in a big elephant moving its hands, legs, ears, big animal. Or in a microbe, it's the same soul that is working. So it's Ascharyavat, isn't it? It is so amazing, the powers of the soul. So, in this way, Ascharyavat pashyati, Ascharyavat vadati, Ascharyavat shrunoti. And then Krishna says, Shrutvapyenam vedana chaiva kaschit. Even after hearing about all this, many people do not understand. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. So, here in this context, Krishna is saying, it is very rare for people to understand about the soul. In the purport, Prabhupada mentions, the Bhagavad Gita is also known as Gita Upanishad, because the knowledge that is present in the Bhagavad Gita is also present in the Upanishads, and it is the essence of all of that knowledge is present here. So Prabhupada is writing, since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad. And then Prabhupada has quoted one verse from the Katha Upanishad. Let's see why Prabhupada is quoting this verse from the Katha Upanishad. Shravanayapi bahubhir yona labhyaha Shrunvantopi bahavo ya naviduhu Ascharyo vakta kushalo asya labdha Ascharyo gnata kushalanusishtaha. You see here also, Ascharya vakta, Ascharyo gnata kushalanusishta. So there is something about Ascharya, amazement, being talked about in this Upanishad verse also. Following this verse, Prabhupada explains, but directly it looks like Prabhupada has not given the translation of this verse. But actually it is there. The rest of the purport is actually the translation and explanation of this purport, of this verse. Shravanayapi bahubir yona labhyaha. Bahubir Shravanayapi na labhyaha. Many people don't even get to hear about the soul. So to come to hear about the soul itself is very rare. Na labhyaha. Shrunvantopi bahavo yana vidyuhu. Shrunvanta. So some of them get to hear about the soul. Even after hearing about the soul, na vidyuhu. They do not understand. So hearing about the soul is rare, and after having heard, to understand the soul is also rare. Ascharyo vakta. Someone who can explain this is also rare, very difficult. Kushalo asya labdha. And one who is skillful, kushala, very expert in explaining these things is also very rare. Ascharyo gnatha kushala anushishtaha. Suppose you find somebody who has understood and who is able to explain, and even after hearing an expert who is able to explain, there are very few people who can understand. Ascharyo gnata. Gnata means one who understood. Gnata is also Ascharya. kushala anushishtaha, even after having heard it from an expert spiritual master. Let's see the purport. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. So, Ascharyavat pashyati, Ascharyavat vadati, Ascharyavat shrunoti. Then, owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. So men look at the soul proper as wonderful, either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matter for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding, even though it is a fact that without this self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps one has no idea that one must think of the soul and also make a solution of the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. So here you see, first Prabhupada described that there are very few people who want to hear. Shravanayapi bahubir yona labhyaha. One who is ready to hear about the soul, there are very few. Because people are engrossed in sense gratification. They are not interested in any of these spiritual matters. And so very rare to find somebody interested in spiritual. Then, Shrunvantopi bahovo yona vidyuhu. Even some people may be attending lectures. Some people are interested in spiritual life. In our country also there are so many opportunities. But some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes owing to ignorance, they are misguided by acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the soul, the super soul, the atomic soul, their respective functions, relationships, and all other major and minor details. Next, and it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. Ascharyo Vakta. Very difficult to find a person who can explain these things properly. But if somehow or other, if one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. So, Ascharya Vakta Kushalosya Labdha. Next, Prabhupada explains here. So, by and large, in the verse of the Gita and in the verse of the Katha Upanishad, how rare it is to understand accurately the truth about the soul is being described. Then Prabhupada says, what is it that will enable us to understand that soul? So far we talked about, we have heard about Prabhupada describing Guru Parampara, and we should receive the knowledge in Parampara. And we talked about Mukhya Vritti and not Gauna Vritti. There is a third important factor to understand and appreciate the Vedic knowledge. And what is that is being explained by Srila Prabhupada. So this is how the understanding the soul is difficult. But there is an easy way. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of Bhagavad Gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. So this is an important principle. To accept the words of the Bhagavad Gita and to accept it as it is. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. Many times what happens, people are not willing to accept the statements of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Although Krishna himself has spoken, they will theorize, they will make their own interpretation, they won't accept it as it is. Mukhya Vritti is to accept it as it is. Here another point is the fact of accepting. Yes, this is what Krishna has said. I believe this. I accept this. That unwillingness to accept. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones, before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because Krishna is describing that He is the Supreme. And one is the theoretically, yes, we should go by the Mukhya Vritti Marga and we should take the direct meaning. The next is to accept that in our heart. Many times Prabhupada explains this sometimes he would very strongly appeal that we should accept meaning, believe in the words of Krishna. We should take these words of Krishna seriously and believe that in our life. And the same is applicable about Krishna, about Shastra, and about the words of the spiritual master. And the next thing that Prabhupada points out, so it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice in this life or in the previous life to come to the point of accepting Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the last sentence in this purport, Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way. If a pure devotee, if one can come in touch with a pure devotee, and by his causeless mercy, one will be able to understand Krishna's true position. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way. So here, the principle of coming in touch with a pure devotee, accepting his words and taking it seriously and taking it seriously with faith is an important factor. In fact, that Shraddha, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, Shraddhavan jana hai bhaktir adhikari. The qualification for bhakti is the Shraddha. And according to the level of Shraddha, one is classified as a Kanishtadhikari, Madhyamadhikari or Uttamadhikari. It is the Shraddha that is an important factor. So, this accepting that these are the words of Krishna. Who is Krishna? Krishna is the Supreme Lord. And His words have to be taken very seriously. That confidence. Just like Prabhupada says, my spiritual master asked me to spread this knowledge all over the world, and I took his words very seriously. I took his words as my life and soul. In fact, that is why Narottam Das Thakur explains that how we should come in touch with the spiritual master and how we should take his words seriously. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Korya Aikya Arana Koryo Mana Asha. That we take the words of the spiritual master and make it our life and soul. That is the seriousness with which it has to be taken. And we see that in the example of Srila Prabhupada's life. He was prepared to make any kind of sacrifice. He was ready to take any kind of difficulties to fulfill the order of his spiritual master. So Prabhupada's life is an example and a demonstration of that kind of a faith in the words of the spiritual master, in the words of Krishna. And that is another important aspect of coming in touch with the right understanding and realizing that spiritual understanding. So, and next the question will be, how can one develop such faith? And that's what Prabhupada concludes here in this purport. How is Shraddha developed? Because Shraddha is the qualification for bhakti. And all of us, we are here to get bhakti. That is our life. That's our purpose of life. We want to get that bhakti. So how can one increase Shraddha? That Shraddha increase can happen when we associate with the sadhu, with a pure devotee. And when we associate with the sadhu, when we hear his words, when we serve his mission, when we have his association, by such association of that pure devotee, our Shraddha will increase. And that is what Prabhupada is concluding here. Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way. Unless one does sadhu sangha, and by such sadhu sangha, Shraddha will increase. And there is no other way. So how important these processes are. One is the parampara, then the mukhya vritti, and after that, it is our heart's participation, willingness to accept, and with full confidence and faith and with seriousness, accepting this process and following the instruction, and then we will make progress. Otherwise, we will just be official, Prabhupada talks about official devotees or official disciples. Not just that we take spiritual master officially, Krishna officially, just like some kind of a superficial thing, but with heart. That is the kind of a application that is required to progress and really understand this spirit soul and the super soul and the signs of all of these things. And that is why Krishna is saying, the Upanishad is saying, it is very rare. We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.